What's up, everybody? I'm Brendan. I'm a full stack developer based in Brooklyn, New York. Today I'm going to be walking you through the solution for the mini Linter project, which is written 100% in JavaScript code. We're going to be talking about how to manipulate arrays and how to iterate over these arrays. You might be wondering, why do we need to manipulate arrays? Why do we need to iterate over arrays? What's the real world context? The real world context is when you become a full stack developer, you're going to be working with a lot of data. You're going to be taking information in a data set or a database and using that information and displaying it on a website. You can think of things like your Gmail. When you sign into Gmail, there's information somewhere on Google's database servers associated with you. When you log on, you get to see your emails. You don't see anyone else's emails. And how do they kind of manipulate the data to show you only your emails? That's through array and object manipulation. And today we're just going to be focusing on array manipulation. Basically, you can think of it like this. Your inbox is a list or an array of elements. Each of these elements is an email. So when you log on, there's probably somewhere in the database with a table dedicated to your emails. And in your table dedicated to you, there's probably another table inside that table or a column inside that table dedicated to all of your featured emails. And this featured email is most likely an array or list of elements. And these elements are just basically emails. They probably have a subject, they probably have a body, but all of this information is probably stored in an array in a database somewhere. And we, as developers, need to kind of go in to the database and grab that information, display it to the end user. So that's why we're learning the things we're learning with this project. All right, so let's dive into it. All right, mini Linter. In this project, you will use what you know about iterating over arrays to improve the quality of a paragraph and gather some information about that paragraph. This is the same type of work that word processing software does. Additionally, you may have heard of linting, a process by which text is evaluated and improved by an application. In this project, you will create a miniature version of a linter using array methods that you have learned. Some real-world context actually that I use a lot is this Chrome plugin called Grammarly, I think it's called. And I betcha it uses the same process right here, linting. It sees all of the text that we're typing, iterates through each word, and if it doesn't recognize that each word is an actual word, if you mistype something, then it'll kind of highlight it and underline it and make a suggestion. Hey, you should change this word. This word is misspelled. This word doesn't have the correct grammar. So that's basically kind of like what we're going to be building today. All right, step one. In the code editor, there is a string called story. We want to gather some information about the individual words and sentences in the string. Let's split the string into individual words and save them in a new array called story words. All right, so when you're working with software and you're working with particular languages, you're going to quickly realize that there are a lot of built-in methods that work great with arrays. And just reading this right here, one word in this task kind of sticks out to me, and that's the word split. There's literally a method in the JavaScript library called split, and that's what we're going to be using today, or sorry, for the step. It says that we want to make a new variable called story words. So I'm declaring that right here on line 7, and I'm going to set that equal to this ginormous string story. And I'm going to call the method on it split. And if you give split an argument of a space, what that does is it looks at the string and it tries to find every space in the string. So if we're looking at these first few words, it'll say, all right, here's a space. What do you want me to do with it? Split. So what that does is for each element that is located on either side of whatever you pass the split, so a space, whatever is located in between a space, treat this as its own element and store it in an array. So for every space that you see in this string, take each element that's kind of split by this space and put it into a new array. And Let's just show you how that works. All right, so it goes through each element, or sorry, each kind of string it finds in this story array, and it's looking for spaces. When it finds a space, it says, great, here's a space, and I see that it's kind of in between two elements or two strings right now, last and weekend. And then it's like, all right, so this is an element that you want split on that space. This is another element that you want split on that space, and so on and so on. So here's another space, so make sure that you split weekend and I, and then I and took, and that's what we see here. So it takes each word basically, or each kind of phrase, because notice weekend, it doesn't split on this comma here. So it kind of, it sees that there's no spaces in between last, weekend, and I, but it doesn't know, it's not smart enough to see that comma isn't a character or isn't like an actual letter in the English alphabet. So it just splits on the space. So you can see that weekend, comma, is actually an element in this list that we just created, this new array that we created, story words. All right, step 2. Log how many words there are in the story to the console. Okay, so notice on line 8, I am console.logging this new variable that I declared, which is taking story, splitting it on spaces, and what does that do? It returns this big array with every element in this string split by spaces. And you see it has 88 more items here. It's not able to show me all of the items, but that's fine. Anyways, how do we figure out how long our array is? There's actually a built-in method for that. It's called length. So I'm taking my new variable, which is an array of all of the strings split by spaces, and I'm calling dot length on that array. So story words here, I'm declaring it. So that's equal to this array. And then I say, all right, tell me the length or how many elements are in that array. And console.log it here so that I can see how long it is. All right, so I know that there's 188 elements in that array, in this story words array. Step 3, there's an array of words that are unnecessary. Iterate over your array to filter out these words. Save the remaining words in an array called better words. There are several ways that you can achieve this. All right, so here's another important lesson when it comes to developing. You're going to be constantly Googling things. You're going to be reading a lot of documentation. You're just going to be scouring the web and looking for the answers to your questions. And because, you know, I've been developing for a bit, so I know right now that there is a method on the top of my mind. I'm going to share it with you in a second. But if you don't know exactly where to go when you reach a tricky part or a tricky task that you have to do, I'd suggest not kind of giving in. Make sure you Google. And I would say, spend 30 minutes of Googling. And once you hit the 30-minute mark, maybe now is the time to kind of reach out for help. But just know that Googling is basically 80% of the software developer's life. All right, so I noticed that they want us to filter out these words. Emphasis on filter. So I know actually that there is a built-in method for arrays in JavaScript called filter. And what filter does is it's a method that creates a new array with all the elements that pass the tests implemented by the provided function. What does that mean, Brendan? When I say provided function, or when I talk about filter, I'm talking about higher order functions. A higher order function is a function that takes another function as its argument. So remember what I had said before, that this method creates a new array with all elements that pass the test implemented by the provided function. So what we have to do with this filter function is we have to give it another function that tests to see whether or not that the word that we're currently iterating over is not included in overused words. If it is not included in unnecessary words array. If it's not in this array, if the word that we're currently iterating over is not in this array, that's great. That means we want to include it, because what we're doing is we're filtering out for these words. We are looking at our story words, which is basically an array of all of the elements in this string split by the space. And we're saying for every word in this story words array, we want to look at each individual word. Is that individual word included in this unnecessary words array? If it is, that's bad. We don't want to include it. If it's not included, that means we want to kind of create a new list of all these words that have filtered out these unnecessary words from the unnecessary words array. Okay, so we need to call filter on whatever array that we want to iterate over. And remember, it's a higher order function, which means it takes another function as its argument, and we're going to iterate through each word. That's why we have to pass in whatever we're iterating over, because filter is an iterator after all. So we're iterating over each word or each element in the story words array. And remember that the way I named this, I could name it anything. It doesn't matter. JavaScript just needs to know like a placeholder name for each element that we're iterating over. And remember that this method creates a new array with all elements that pass the test implemented by this function that we're building. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to filter out all the words that are included in necessary words. So that means that we want to look at the unnecessary, we want to look at the unnecessary words array, and we're going to pass in word to this includes method. Now the includes method will basically look at this array that you pass it, and if whatever you pass includes to, so the word that we're currently iterating over in the story words array, if the word that we're iterating over is inside or located inside this unnecessary words array, then it's going to evaluate to true. If it doesn't include it, then it's going to evaluate to false. Now remember that the filter method, it takes or creates a new array with all the elements that pass the test implemented by the provided function. So whatever function that you pass filter, it needs to either evaluate to true or false. And for all of the elements that evaluate to true, it's going to create a new array of all of those elements. So, but here's the thing. We don't want to grab all the words that are included in unnecessary words. We want to grab all the words that are not included in unnecessary words. And how do we use negation in JavaScript? With an exclamation point. So we're going to say, this evaluates basically to filter all the words or grab all the words and create a new array as long as the word that we're currently iterating over is not included in the unnecessary words array. So that's what this not means. If we didn't have this here, then it would basically grab only the words that are included in this array of unnecessary words. So if the word that we're currently iterating over is equal to extremely or literally or actually, awesome, let's create a new array and add it to this new array. So we want to say not. And this is all fine and dandy, but we actually need to save the results into a variable. So let's do that like this. So now when we console.log better words, we will only see the words in the story words array that are not included in the unnecessary words array. So we basically filtered out all the words that we didn't want. Oh, and one important thing to remember, you need to return what word it is you want to include in this filtered array. Okay, so you'll notice that there's no more extremely, literally, and actually in there because we've taken them out. Okay, so let's see, how can I prove that to you? So notice, and it actually, the 9W2 ENYAC, and it stretches, so it, the original string had actually, but we no longer have it. It just goes from it to stretches. So it worked. All right, step 4. There's an array of words called overused words. These are words overused in the story. You want to let the user of your program know how many times they have used these overused words. There are 2 ways to achieve this. Try it on your own first. If you need help, consult the hint. So I'm actually going to copy and paste some code real quick. I'll be right back. Just give me a second here. First, I'm going to comment this out. And let me paste this. All right. Okay, so let me explain here. First, let me save this. All right. So what this is asking us to do is, for every word in the overused words, so there's really, very, and basically, we want to see how many times that each word pops up in our story words array. So what I've done is I've declared 3 variables up here: really count, very count, and basically count. And these will correspond to however many occurrences of the word really, very, basically occur in our story words array. And what I've done here on line 18 is I've declared a for loop, which is, it looks at story words. So remember, story words is our array of elements split by spaces. And it says, for every word of the story words array, so iterate through each word or each element in the story words array, and run that word through all of these logic checks. If the word that we're currently iterating over is equal to the string really, great, awesome. Let's increase the count of really count by 1. So really count plus equals 1 really means really count equals what really count was equal to plus 1. That plus equals is just shorthand for that. Else, if the word is equal to very, increase the very count. Else, if the word is equal to basically, increase the basically count. So let's say that the word that we're currently iterating over is actually equal to basically. Is word equal to really? No, it's equal to basically. So it's not going to run this. It's going to skip to this one. Is the word equal to basically? No. Or sorry, is the word equal to very? No, it's still equal to basically. So it's going to skip that. And then it hits this statement and it says, is basically equal to basically? Yes, it is. So let's increase the basically count by 1. All right. And you know what? Let me just kind of show you what that looks like. So I'm going to say, this is basically how you can label your console.logs. So really count, then you have to put, this is, you treat this like a label. And as long as you keep things separated by commas, so it's going to look at the string, it's going to log this string, and then we're going to pass it the variable really count. And let me show you what that'll look like. Actually, let me put this like that. There we go. Good. All right, so the really count, so there were 2 occurrences of really in our better words array, or sorry, our story words array. I'll do the same, do the same for very count and basically count. Very, okay, so it looks like very was a very popular word in our story words array. Step 5. Now count how many sentences are in the paragraph. This may seem tricky, but remember that all the sentences in this paragraph end with a period or an exclamation mark. You could iterate over the array and add 1 to a sentence counter variable for each word that has a period or exclamation mark as its final character. So I'm going to remove this for now. And I'm going to declare a sentences count variable and set that equal to 0. And we kind of want to do basically what we did up here. We want to create a for loop. So we want to look at each word in the story words array, and we want to see if the last character of that word that we're iterating over is equal to either a period or an exclamation point. If it is, then that means it's the end of a sentence, and we can increase our sentences count by 1. So let's write an if statement inside this for loop. So the for loop, remember, creates or looks at our list of elements, our story word elements, and it looks at each word. So we're currently on the first word in the story words array. We're saying if the word at the last character, now this is the tricky part, how do we get the last character of the particular word that we're iterating over? So remember, when you're working with arrays, you can look at, or strings, this is actually a string. Let me prove it to you. Console.log word. So what do you expect to see here? Okay. And we're seeing what we're currently iterating over. So it's looking at the first element, second, yada, 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 all the way to the end. But what is the type of whatever we're iterating over? Is it an array? Is it an object? Is it a string? Is it an integer? Is it a Boolean? What is it? Okay, so these are all strings. So I've proved to you that each word that we're iterating over is a string. And a string in array works exactly the same kind of in JavaScript. When you iterate over a particular string, you can actually get access to particular characters that make up that string. So let's see what the first character of each string that we're currently iterating over is. So I'm assuming that we're going to see L, W, I, T, L, etc. Because what I'm saying is, for each word, look at the element of this string at the 0th index. So a string is basically just a list or an array of characters, and I'm saying look at the first character in that string. All right, so L, W, I, T, L, exactly what I expected. So this is great, but how do we check to see if the last element of this word that we're iterating over, or this last character that we're iterating over, the last character of the word that we're iterating over, is equal to an exclamation point or a period? How do we find the last element in a string? Well, we know the length of the string, and we know that in JavaScript, arrays and strings are indexed starting at an index of 0. So if we have the length of the string, word at the index of word.length is going to be one more than however many total elements, or sorry, word at the index of word.length doesn't make sense, because word at the word.length, if things are indexed starting at 0, then the particular character at word at the index of word.length is not going to exist. It's going to be one more than what we're looking for. So how do we basically say, all right, take the word.length and subtract 1, because that's the last element in this word that we're looking at? We do it by subtracting 1 by the word.length. And this will actually show us the last character in the string that we're currently iterating over. All right, so I'm noticing comma, period, period, exclamation point. Okay, so we're making progress here. So now that I've proved to you that we're able to access the last character in a word, we need to write an if statement that checks to see if this last character is equal to a period, or, and these double brackets here, these double kind of pipes represent the or statement in JavaScript, or the last character, let me just copy this again, is equal to a period. What we want to do? We want to increase sentences count by 1. So what this says is if the word that we're currently iterating over, if the last word, or sorry, the last character in that string is equal to a period or is equal to an exclamation point, then do this. Increase the sentences count by 1. So remember, the or statement works like this. Whatever's to the left of it or the right of it, if one of them evaluates to true, that means it gets to run whatever follows it. So these could both be true. This could be true, or this could be true. This could be false, or this could be true. This could be true, and this could be false. Doesn't matter. It'll still get run because this is how or works. All right. So let's see how many sentences are in our story words array. Sorry. Remember, story words is just looking at this string story. So what this is actually doing is it's counting however many sentences are in this story string. So let's see how many sentences there are, or how many words last characters are equal to either a period or an exclamation point. 12. Awesome. Step 6, log these items to the console. The word count, the sentence count, the number of times each overused word appears. You could choose to simply log them one by one, or for a challenge, create a function that logs all of them with some formatting. So the word count is what? Is, remember, up here, line 8. It's the length of however many elements are in our story words array. So console.log story words.length. And let's give it a label like this. Right. Word count. And then sentence count. Give it a label sentences count, and be sure to put a comma after that string. And the number of times each overused word appears. No, we already did that. So I'm just going to copy and paste my old code. All right, so there are 188 words, 12 sentences, 2 occurrences of the word really, 5 occurrences of the word very, and 1 occurrence of the word basically. Step 7, now log the better words array to the console as a single string. Okay, so there is a built-in method in JavaScript called join, and join is used to take an array. So it looks at each element, and based on what you pass the method join, it says, all right, take each word and join it with whatever you pass me. So what does that look like? Better words dot join. And what do we want to join this list of strings that we have? We want to join them by spaces, because that's how we speak English. We separate each word with a space. So let's see what that looks like when we console.log it. I'm gonna keep that there actually. All right. So remember, what did better words do? It took all the unnecessary words and took them out. So basically, we built like a nice little filter um, that improves our stories. So let's say you're a blogger, you could actually write your own software that takes what you wrote and filters out all the words that you don't like to use. And then it's kind of up here as like a tracker. It'll know however many words you've written, how many sentences are in the whatever you wrote, and if you're keeping track of particular words that you don't like or things that you kind of are sensitive about, then how many times you use really, very basically, you've got like a tracker up here that tells you exactly how many times you've used those words. All right, step 8. Congratulations, you've improved the original paragraph and given the user some important information about his or her work. Think about ways in which you can extend this project, potentially by using other JavaScript knowledge you have. Here's some ideas. For the overused words, remove it every other time it appears. Write a function that finds the word that appears the greatest number of times, and replace overused words with something else. All right, so I'm going to leave y'all to tackle those ideas, but I hope this was helpful. And I think this is actually a pretty powerful tool. I am a big time blogger, so this could actually come in handy in my own kind of writing, because I know that, well, one thing, I am a slow writer, but I do find myself using a lot of these words that I know that my 8th grade English teacher would be very upset that I'm still using as a 25-year-old. But anyways, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you for the next project walkthrough. Bye.